I'm going to try and tell you a little bit about, let's just sort of double click on what Mr. Bagla was talking about. What I want to talk about today is ONDC, but I want to tell you the art of the possible. Where is India headed? Why are we headed there? What are we going to do? ONDC is potentially the next step in that entire concept of interoperability and unbundling. Now, that being said, let me ask you a couple of questions. What percentage of Indians do you think are actually transacting online? Not the payment side to it, but the digital commerce side to it. What percentage of Indians? Any ideas? Thoughts? 50%? It is less than 10%. It is about 6%, 5 to 6%. All right? So 1.6 billion people, but only about 5 to 6% of those are transacting online. How many businesses do you think are actually online? What percentage of businesses are online? Less than? Okay, so I have less than 15%. Any other numbers? I feel like I'm doing an auction out here. The number is actually less than 1%. Okay? So if you really and truly look at it, it is actually, the scope of it is really, really wide. Where do you think ONDC wants to go? What do you think is where do you think that ONDC will say, when do you think we are successful? No. When we reach 75% of India. That means that I want to be in a situation where I should be able to pick up a product or deliver a product across 75% of India. So, literally, everything that Mr. Bagla was saying earlier, just do the math, and you'll see that the scope is extremely massive. And how are we going to go ahead and do that? It is literally based on two simple principles: interoperability and unbundling. From a finance perspective, that should come very, very naturally to you. Is it possible that I can actually walk into a Standard Chartered bank abroad and say I'm going to swipe an ICICI credit card and say I want to pull out some cash or a debit card? It is possible, right? How is that possible? That is because the two banks are interoperable. Same point in time, how many of, and I'm going to date some of you, my apologies on that. How many of you use Hotmail? Oh, come on, somebody's got to be using Hotmail. Okay, thank you. Now, is it possible that when you send an email from Hotmail, a person on Gmail cannot get it? It is not possible, right? The idea basically is, it is all interoperable. That is why it works. And that is exactly where we want to take commerce. If it can happen in the finance sector, and it can happen on email, why not for trade? Right? Now, that being said, let me just ask you, how many of you have actually transacted online, as in you have bought something from any of the platforms, whether it is soap, or it is food, or it is any kind of a fast-moving consumer good, or consumer good by that matter? Anybody? In the last 30 days? In the last 7 days? In the last 2 days? So, ONDC is not just meant for you. But how many of you actually went to multiple platforms to choose that particular product? Why? Because you don't trust that, right? You never were very sure of that particular product coming to you, whether it was the right price or that particular product was yours, or was the pricing right for you, or the product was right for you, or is the product actually going to be right for the platform? Now, how many of you, and I know that there are a bunch of corporates out here, how many of you are actually utilizing a lot of the platforms to sell your products? Say a few. So now out of this, the major problems that happen on a platform is actually margins. Can you define the margins? No. Largely, those margins are set by the platforms, and it can be anything from 10 to 40%. As a matter of fact, Bloomberg just put out a report that the amount of money that you're spending is almost up to about 50%. And that's just top-line margins. Can you define your terms and conditions? No. Can you define your delivery times? No. Those are already all defined for you. And then there is also two more problems, right? Disintermediation. If your product is really, really successful, you can be pretty sure that probably that platform is going to white label it, and suddenly your entire market space has kind of gone away because they've just white labeled it to XYZ. And fourth, as we were just discussing, that you need to go to multiple platforms to actually see if that particular product is right for you or not. You actually have more of an OpEx built out on you for the simple reason that you need to make sure that your products are on multiple platforms so that you are going to be visible. Yeah? Now, what do you think is ONDC? ONDC, by that nature, is interoperable and unbundled. The idea I'm going to think of for you is simple. You as a customer are potentially going to go to an Airtel application or to a Paytm or to a PhonePe application and put in and say, I want to look for a refrigerator, or looking for bottles of water, or look for food. Right? In the present scenario, if you are going to a particular platform, that platform needs to have onboarded all those different sellers and have those terms and conditions as we were just discussing. But now, you've just gone to a completely different platform where you, under normal circumstances, wouldn't have gone, but you've just put in a particular product. That request now goes to the ONDC gateway. There is no, ONDC is not a front end or a back end, right? It is a gateway. It is like a switch. So that request has now gone to the gateway, and the gateway is now broadcasting it on the other side to a bunch of seller applications, right? So it's gone to a GoFrugal, it's gone to a Growth Falcon, etc. What is happening at that point in time is that their sellers are working with their seller applications and sending back results to you. So, from a seller perspective, you no longer have to be on multiple platforms, right? You just need to be on one, because guess what? You're going to be discoverable and visible over the entire network. If you're on a buyer application as a customer, now you don't have to worry about, right? Oh, will I be able to see the right set of products, etc. Now, the other thing also happens, right? There is a trust building measure to it, which is, if I've got all of these particular products coming to you, now what do I do? Now, from an ONDC perspective, once the search and discovery is done, ONDC steps out of the picture. And the reason for it is very simple. We are not here to try and compete against any of the existing platforms, but we will actually grow the market. Okay? I was just talking to Ricky and Gaurav just before this, right? Why are we doing this? And do we have a playbook? All of us are very, very used to that copy-paste model, right? Oh, it's happening somewhere in the world. Let me copy and paste it here. But please keep in mind, what we are doing here in India now has never, ever been done before. It was never even conceived of. Because of that, all of us sitting here are actually so deeply ingrained into that, that entire construct of a platform is so deeply ingrained in our DNA that when we start talking about ONDC and I say break your mental model, just think slightly differently. You're creating an order on a PhonePe or a Paytm or an Airtel application, and it is going on the other side to somebody else, and the order is getting fulfilled. Your margins have gotten better because now the different applications are now trying to work better. We are not here to kill any of the existing platforms. Please keep in mind, right? Because I said we are going to expand the market. Obviously, their market will also expand. But that's where it goes to the next step. Once that particular product is delivered, there is the entire construct of returns, cancellations. How does that work? In the platform world, it is all controlled within the platform, right? You don't have to worry about it because, oh, I will call up somebody and they'll figure it out. But now we've built the processes for it. We've developed all those things internally. Okay? Now, how does money move? We've actually defined out some things called as nodal-like accounts, where the money comes in. There is an RSP framework, which is the Recon Service Provider model. The RSP, which is a function, builds out and creates a settlement advice. Based on that settlement advice, money moves from one nodal-like account to the other side. Based on their settlement advice, the seller application can now pay the seller. And what happens in case of grievances? Yes, we've thought of those things and we built that out too. Okay? You have a problem. You don't have to go and say, oh, but the product actually came to me from a different set of the world, which means that do I need to call that particular vendor? No. The way we structured it out is own it up. That responsibility is on the interfacing application. So if you as a customer have a problem, you will actually go to your interfacing application, which could be an Airtel or a PhonePe, etc., or a Craftsvilla or My Store. On the reverse side, if you're a seller and you've had a problem, you will go to the GrowFrugal or the UEngages, etc., of the world, wherever you've been interfaced into it. Right? And it goes through the entire process, issue to grievance to through the ODR process and out. As a matter of fact, some of those different things that we've been able to design out, we're turning around and actually pushing the boundaries ourselves. So if I look at the entire process from issue to grievance post an arbitration ruling, we're saying it should be completed within 37 days. To some of you in the room, I'm sure you guys are going to say, what's wrong with you? It just takes us 37 days to say hi. Right? But we're saying resolve it in 37 days, tops. So we've gone out and done all these things. And we're taking the lead in pushing the boundary on how fast, how quickly, etc. we can do this. Another example that Mr. Bagla was also mentioning. Do you know that India is one of the very, very few in the world where literally a UPI transaction from a person to person, etc. can take place in under 5 seconds? We're exporting UPI. Okay? We're actually, from an ONDC perspective, we are also working on how will exports work. Because it is, for us, it isn't just domestic transactions. I also have to figure out, somebody sitting in London should be able to go to any of these applications and order a Kanjivaram sari from the weaver sitting in Kanchipuram. Is it possible? Yeah. Why not? Seriously, why not? At this point in time, you are limited just by your own imagination on what the network can do. Both sides to it, right? Some of the other things that we are looking at is you need credit to make your operations run. And I'm saying whether it is the consumer side, which is BNPL, PL, EMI, or trade financing. Or I'm looking at everything from how do I make it, whether I can do invoice financing or supply chain financing, etc. All those different parameters are things that we are working on already. And we're not going to stop here. And as Koshi also says, right, many, many times, that when you walk into a mall, and if you're a shop owner in a mall, and the mall only has one entry point, then you can actually pay that guard that's sitting there and saying, hey, send all the customers my way. Yes? But now, your mall has 50,000 entry points. Who all will you pay? How will you manage it? That being said, we're also looking at another model which is very simple. Since we are going down to 75% of India, everybody doesn't need the same type of experience and the same type of products that we in this room are used to. where we will step outside and have a 500 rupee coffee. There will be people who will step outside to the local shop on the street and have a 10 rupee coffee or a tea. The services associated with each one of these are going to be very, very different. When I, as a customer in a 5-star hotel or a 2-star hotel or whichever, if I go into a 5-star hotel, maybe I'll spend 500 rupees for the cup of tea. If I go into a 2-star or a 3-star hotel, I will spend 250 rupees, and if I go to the street, I'll spend 10. But at that point in time, when I walk into a 5-star hotel, I will turn and say, I don't like the tea. Guy will pick it up, take it away, bring me a new one. Right? Service levels change. Now I'm going down to the street and saying, give me a tea. He gives it to me for 10 rupees. And I say, I don't like it. He's going to say, well, that's all I got, buddy. I could have said it in Hindi, but I don't know how many people, everybody understands Hindi or not. Well, he would have said, Sab, yahi hai, lena hai to lo, nahi chahiye to mat lo. Right? But that doesn't mean that the requirement for that has changed. It just means that the type of service or the product that I'm looking for has changed. What ONDC does, it allows you to do all of those and more. We're looking at innovation across the board. I'm looking at new business models being created, people coming to us and talking to us and saying, hey, I'm really good at going and connecting up with all the sellers, but I don't know where to go for customers. Great, come to ONDC. Because guess what? I mean, you have a great litany of products, and those set of products, you don't have a customer base for. At this point in time, you would have to go to some of the platforms, or you would have to try and create your own platform. And as Mr. Bagla was saying, right, customer acquisition cost is pretty high, even though it is 1/5 of the world in India, but it still starts adding up. On the other side of it, let's say you're a small company which has a bunch of customers, but you don't know what to sell them. You want to actually make sure that that particular customer stays sticky with you. If that is true, then you need to give them a bunch of products to buy. I'll give you an example, right? I was talking to somebody in the jewelry industry, and they turned around to me and said, you know what, Rahul, jewelry is actually sold a lot during wedding season and things like that. But at that point in time, people are actually buying the jewelry and they want to send it with flowers. But I'm a jewelry shop. How am I going to do that? Or I'm a online jewelry store. How am I going to do that? At this point in time, but I still have to, because that is absolutely essential to work. So what I do is, my people are picking up the phone and physically calling that particular shop, making sure that the flowers are delivered, then I'm putting it together and then I'm shipping it out. So my overall cost of transaction is going up. And he said, great, what do you think you can do out here? He goes, that means that I can sell jewelry from myself, I can look on the network myself and get that flowers delivered also, and I'm no longer having to carry forward on a phone and have a physical person who's trying to do those things, and actually just ship out the product. Yeah? The other side to it, right? Somebody turned around and said, you know, I need supply chain financing. I'm dealing a lot, but where I'm getting constrained is because I'm dealing with the particular platform. Even though the platform is getting paid upfront, they are paying me 60 days after. Can I at least do something where I get paid, let's say 10% on order confirmation? Can I get paid 50% on order dispatch? That way, at least my working capital keeps going. Yeah. On ONDC, you can define those terms and conditions, and that entire construct will work. ONDC is not just for B2B or B2C. It is D2C and the entire alphabet soup. Parts of it that I don't even know. So my apologies on that. Now, I spoke about the trust building measures, etc. also. And I see time's up. But one of those things that somebody walked in, and believe it or not, when we've been working on all these little things, whether we are talking about how do you do recon, right? How do I do settlements? How do I do issue and grievance management? It wasn't just a bunch of people sitting in the ONDC office and saying, yeah, let's do that. we've actually had people working in ONDC from different corporates and coming and saying, you know what, I actually want to do this because this is something that enthuses me. Organizations have sent us people. Large tech, they actually have given us people said, these people are on sabbatical from us. We will pay their salaries, but they'll work in your office to do whatever you need them to do. Okay? We're not slave drivers, but I'm just, okay? But they're still coming into our office and they're working there. And we've been in these joint workshops where people are yelling at screens because we're trying to design out how would this work in a completely unbundled fashion. We've had sellers of products, we've had sellers of services, we've had bankers, we've had every type of organization set up working with us in the last 1 odd year. So the last thing I'm going to leave you with right now is something that was said during one of our sessions that we were working with, right? This one gentleman walks in and he's the MD and CEO of the company. And he said, you know what, you're looking at the scoring and badging side to it, and the scoring and the rating and all of those things. He's like, I really want to be, this is really, really interesting. Can I stay for 30 minutes? Please, sir. 3 hours later, he comes up, I really have to go. Can I come back? I said, please, sir. So he says, as he stood up, he goes, guys, I just want to leave you with one thought. And I say, okay, please. He goes, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? Okay? Questions?
So, sir, my question is that when is the ONDC going to be ready? Because for MSME, I have been working with a lot of e-commerce players for the last 15 years. I have built my brand on Amazon, on my Flipkart and Grofers and so on. So most of the founders are known also to me. So whatever factors you said, cost of acquisition, the marketing spend, the logistics issues, the delivery issues, and then the dispute resolving and all that. So I know it's a very promising proposition, but when it is going to be ready, where all you have to approach for this? This is my question.
Thank you for bringing that up, sir. It skipped my mind, but we are right now beta testing out in Bangalore and Meerut. Other than that, I know and I've seen transactions happening over 150 odd cities in India. Okay, we have over I think about 8 buyer applications on the network already, and 20 plus applications approximately on the seller side. Other than that, there are about 650 different applications which are or entities who are logging in and creating and or are in advanced stages of development. So to your question, sir, the system is already running. From another perspective, right, we've already started off with grocery and food and beverages because those are some of the more difficult ones to solve. And our view was, if we can solve for the more difficult ones, then we can look on the other ones also. Okay? But we started with grocery and food and beverages, home and kitchen, consumer electronics, fashion and footwear, medicines, everything is getting opened out in quick succession. As a matter of fact, KOMN, which is from a mobility perspective, is also already on, it's already on the overall, on the ONDC network too. Okay, so to your question, sir, it's rolling ahead. Last part, how do you get in touch? Please drop me an email. My email address is rahul@ondc.org. It's as simple as that. Please drop me an email and I will connect you in. We will figure out which vertical or slash category you are into, and we will work with you on making sure that you're onto the network. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Handa. I'd like to invite Mr. Ricky Kora, Head of Transaction Banking, Asia, Africa, and Middle East, Standard Chartered Bank, to hand over a memento to Mr. Handa, please.